Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We are experienced investors with a huge advantage as we have been able to learn from our family that has well over 100 years of experience in real estate and other alternative investments. Here on Master Your Millions, we seek to share that experience that we've learned and expand our knowledge as we talk to the top leaders in alternative areas of investing. We are super excited for our guest today. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Well, Scott, before I tell you his name or anything, a little bit about him, I want to sort of boast that this is the first time that our guest also has a podcast that he does with his son. So it's another father-son duo, although Randy has his son produces the podcast, but the two of them together are doing it. So it's kind of like you and I, Scott. But I want to introduce everybody to Randall Kenneth Jones. He is an author, a speaker, a podcaster, a communications consultant, a storyteller, and most importantly, he puts out there that he is a listener, which we have talked to many people that is very important in the event you want to get anywhere in life. So welcome to the show, Randy.
Happy to be here, and let's shout out to Kevin Jones, my son, Kevin Jones. It's very cool, you all being father-son. It's one of the coolest things ever that I get to do that with him. He is working on the show. I love it. I love it. And he's so talented.
Scott and I are, the whole idea evolved, we were on kind of two different ends of kind of the financial realm, where I work a lot in the infinite banking concept. And then he first started off as a mortgage broker. He still is a mortgage broker. And then we kind of work together, talk to people about investing, about raising money for different projects and things. And so there's some overlap. And the whole idea came from, well, maybe we should start a podcast and see how that went. Scott says he has alternative motives. Why don't you tell us what your alternative motive was?
Well, it's kind of like a journal, I can sit and glean information not only from the guests, but my own father, who I can be able to pass on to my kids. So that's truly what the alternative motive is. And so we kill two birds with one stone. It's a fun back and forth.
I love that. And like I've said about my books and I've said about my podcasts and all the recordings, they're there forever. And you know how hard it is for me to find out information on my great-grandparents. My dad's 91 and he remembers a lot, but not that much. Well, my offspring and their kids, there's a lot of Randall Kenneth Jones that's going to be available. A lot more than maybe they want, but it's very cool to capture all that information. Yeah, I'm really proud of that.
Cool. Well, Randy, I want to kind of dive in a little bit. And we talked a little bit before the show that one of the things I believe that you can bring to our listeners is the fact that you have a wealth of knowledge. I mean, you have been tapped into some very, very famous people, household names that you've had on your podcast. You, for one reason or another in your journey in life, has been either by the power of proximity or kindness of mentors to introduce you to a lot of different people. You're sitting in a situation where you have a lot to share with the world. Tell us a little bit how that's happened.
Yeah, I'm a lucky guy. It really comes down. You mentioned listening, and this is where I'm very honest. What really is the truth is I talk too much. I have always been a performer and a comedian, and I talk way too much, and I did not listen well. So when I was pushing 50, we moved to Naples, Florida, from the Washington, D.C. area. And I'm obsessed with lifelong learning. I'm obsessed with education. I knew there were all these extraordinary people who lived in Naples, Florida, and I wanted to meet them. And I went to the newspaper, the Naples Daily News, and said, hey, there's all these wildly successful people in Naples. I'm a writer. Does anybody talk to them? I said, do you want to do it? I said, yes. And I don't want your money because I want to write a book. Well, they loved that free. They loved that free thing. But it really came from a desire to learn to listen better. At almost 50, And to do what I do, to have not one, but two books out, to have a podcast with 180 some odd interviews out, there's like 300 people that I've talked to. I had to learn to shut up and listen, because you can't do it otherwise. You can't interpret it. So what had happened was I started being introduced to people. And I think basically I name dropped my way into a pretty impressive portfolio of names. One of the first people I met was a gentleman named Phil Booth. He was the executive in charge of Good Morning America for 10 years. He's now 90 years old. One of my favorite people on the planet, has been on my podcast, took me under his wing. And before long after I met him, I'm answering the phone and I hear, Randy, Regis Philbin here. Regis Philbin is calling me. Yes. People should see that, you cannot be prepared for that to happen when you hear Regis Philbin. And the blessing of Regis Philbin is that he treated that 15-minute conversation about Phil, because we were really actually talking about Phil. He was contributing to my profile of Phil Booth. He treated like that conversation as if it was the most important thing he had to do that day. He was so focused on me. He was so focused on his friend. And that in and of itself was an incredible blessing, to see how he was able to make me feel really important at that particular point in time. I very quickly had met socially a gentleman named Jack McKinney through an arts organization. Did not realize at the time that Jack McKinney was Magic Johnson's first professional basketball coach at the Los Angeles Lakers. So next, I'm interviewing a former NBA coach, and we're talking about, leadership and teamwork. And then all of a sudden, Magic Johnson and Bill Walton are calling me up. Now, I'm tall, I'm wicked slow, but I'm tall. So there was a time where I thought that tall would be enough and wicked slow wouldn't matter. Well, wicked slow really was the problem. I never became a basketball player, but Bill Walton was it. He was everything back in the 70s when I was growing up, and now he's on my phone. And what happened is it just escalated from there. The people that were saying yes to me were extraordinary, because I was able to have credibility from saying who had already agreed to talk to me. I was writing a series of columns. After 4 years of that column, I put out the first book, Show Me, which is a tip of the hat to Missouri, my home state of Missouri. Show me celebrities, business tycoons, rock stars, journalists, humanitarians, attack bunnies, and more. And once that book came out, I realized I missed it, and I didn't necessarily want to do the column, but it was a drug, as I'm sure you know, talking to people and learning from them and hearing their stories and being on the receiving end of their wisdom and their goodness is so exciting. I started the podcast, and we're in the 5th season now. And I started that podcast with Susan Bennett, the original voice of Siri. So Siri is a real person. Siri is a wicked funny person. She's one of my very best friends. And we have now had Jones.show we're coming to the end of our 5th season. Absolutely incredible. 300 people have said yes to talking to me. It's amazing.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Who would you say has been the funnest person to interview? I mean, like you laughed a lot with.
Oh my goodness. I laughed a lot with, oh, wow. Vicky Barbalek from America's Got Talent was one of the comedians, was in the top 5 of America's Got Talent. The comedians are great. Ryan Niemiller, another comedian from America's Got Talent. What I wanted and what I continue to pursue with my podcast with Jones.show is, people are like, what's your niche? I'm like, that's the point. I'm anti-niche. I don't say live in a niche. Try to the best of your ability to talk to people who do different things. And so I'm really across the board, but the comedians have been a lot of fun to be able to talk to them. Barbara Corcoran was amazing. Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank. We had so much fun together. We had so much fun on the phone. We had so much fun in person. She's a wild thing, and I say that with so much love. another person that was so extraordinary. I'm so actually happy that Hoda Kotb from NBC and Ginger Z from ABC are as good of people as you want them to be. Hoda Kotb is extraordinary. She is funny. She is kind. She is warm. She is welcoming. She had me on her radio show when my first book came out. Ginger Z has done my podcast twice. She is just, she's a light. She's just incredible. So to actually be able to experience and meet people who I admire and see, wow, they're really worthy of all my admiration. They've really earned it, and they continue to earn it. Now, I'll also say candidly, my purpose is to look for the best in people. I had all of the judges from the TV show Hot Bench, the entire cast actually for the TV show Hot Bench on the show. And I told all these legal TV people, I'm not looking for the smoking gun. If we find one, I'll help you hide it because I'm not interested. And I'm not. I'm interested in what can you teach me, and subsequently, what can I teach my listener from the way you live your life? And it's just been a wonderful scenario.
I love that. That's where, that idea of learning from your guests, right? And then somehow distilling that or bringing that out of the guest to your listener. And that is one thing we're not anywhere near as experienced as you are. And we're still finding our way, if you will, a little bit to find out who our listeners are. I don't know. It's been interesting. I've had a few friends, say from high school and so, this or that, have contacted me. Hey, I've been listening to your podcast. It's pretty cool. And like, wow, I didn't even know you knew about it. I didn't.
Oh yeah, you don't.
To you.
And people ask me, did I get feedback? I said, well, you know what? I mean, I'm kind of the feel-good podcast, and I'm not trying to be controversial. And when you're not controversial, you don't hear much. You really don't. Because when you're the feel-good guy, there's not much to people to comment on. So I just refused to be negative. I refuse to be sensational, a sensationalist. I refuse to go to the dark side in order to get more recognition. I won't do that because that's not who I am. That's not what the podcast represents. And that's not why people say yes to being on the podcast. And that's not why people listen to it, because I'd rather have a good time. I'd rather enjoy them. And I'm telling you, again, I can't do any of this if I don't really listen. Hey, when Vanna White told me, I asked her a question that no one else had ever asked her before in her life. And I'm thinking, what? She done like 35,000 interviews. I can't even imagine. And I managed to ask Vanna White something she'd never been asked. That was a really good day for me. That was a really great day.
Yeah, I'll bet. So I'm dying to ask a little bit about Pat Benatar, because I'm kind of a fan of her music. What was it like?
We could do an entire show on Pat Benatar, by the way. I can talk about her forever, but please continue, and I'm happy to chat about it.
No, I fan of her music, and that's what I said when I noticed that she'd been on your podcast. Like that's pretty cool. I'd like to have someone like that on our podcast, teach us a little bit. But
tell us what it was like, though. What was it like having her on?
There's a phenomenal backstory to Pat, and I'll give you the brief version of it. In college, for money, at the University of Missouri, I performed singing telegrams. I put on a chicken suit, a bunny suit, whatever, ran around town with balloons and sang to people. That was my job. That's one of the things I did. I also worked at a radio station, but I did singing telegrams to run around with my balloons and chicken suit in a Ford Pinto. So just get that image right there. You add the Ford Pinto in, and it's even a better image. I found out in 1982 she was coming to the University of Missouri to do a concert. It was probably my first big idea. It was the first time I could say, hey, that's really me having an entrepreneurial spirit, an entrepreneurial idea. And I talked to the right people, said the right things, got it set up, went backstage at that concert a little over 40 years ago, rewrote Hit Me With Your Best Shot, took her 6 dozen balloons, bounced her up and down on my knee, had the best time. She signed my copy of the telegram. only after I signed her copy of the telegram. I said, if I was Prince Charming, and I said, if they took the camera, and I said, if we don't have a picture, nobody in Prince Charming's kingdom is going to believe he was here. The picture comes back. Pat Benatar changed my life. You could say saved my life, changed my life. She made me realize maybe I could be successful outside of my own zip code. And I did not stay in my hometown at the time. I did not stay. I did move to the Washington, D.C. area and went into marketing. And I'm a speaker and I'm a writer. I have my first fiction book out, Mark Victor Hansen, who introduced us. Mark Victor Hansen published that. It all comes back to Pat Benatar being so nice and so encouraging and so sweet. 33 years later, I was set up to interview her here for my column in the paper, that because she was doing a concert that would become part of my book. And I said, did they give you the backstory? Did they tell you about our backstory? She said, no. So I take the piece of paper with her signature and our photo, slide it across the table. When she said to me, I don't just remember the telegram, I remember you. Again, life-changing. She remembered me. Not just the telegram, but me. And now we're friends. I go see her every time she's in town. We go backstage, we hang out, we have an actual friendship, an actual relationship. And again, for those people who love her, she's worth every single bit of your love because she's such a good person. She's a wonderful mother. She's a wonderful grandmother. She's smart. She's funny. She's down to earth. She's unpretentious. She says what she means. And she's in this incredibly, insanely wonderful relationship with Neil Giraldo, her music partner and husband of over 40 years. And she's got this incredible relationship with him, and so profoundly special. And it was something that she actually started all of this in 1982, and it took me decades to get back to it, insofar as sitting down and actually learning from people. But she changed my life. I love the story. I talk about her all the time. Nobody loves her more than me, literally. I tell her husband, nobody loves her more than me. So
haven't gotten a fist fight yet, anyway.
yeah. So far, he's smiling and nodding. But he's a genius himself. Creatively, Neil Giraldo is a creative genius. He's amazing, and they're both wonderful to me. Wonderful to me.
So that was the beginning of your entrepreneur type of mentality, and it sounds like you might have had a few different starts and stops along the ways, yet coming to Florida and this idea of, oh, I'm not going to charge the paper to do the column, yet that has turned into something quite good for you, just simply acting on that desire.
Absolutely. I get to do what I love. I get to talk to people. I really do want to learn. I'm really there as a student first, and then the student takes all the information in, asks the question, digs deep, tries to get to what you really mean. And I've been told I'm really good at that. And then I have built a platform as an educator. I always wanted to be a teacher, and I built my own education platform as a public speaker, as a trainer, as a podcaster. I built my own education platform, and I've got the best mentors in the world. I've got 300 people who've talked to me, and I've got their best shots, their best tips to build upon. And because I've talked to so many different people in so many different disciplines, I'm able to really customize the programs according to the needs of the group. What they really, who their people are going to resonate with. I do not only interview celebrities. I think that would be awful, because if I find they're interesting, I'm going to interview them. I don't want to be that person, because people like me who do not have the level of celebrity of a lot of my people, those people deserve to be heard too. And I want to also make sure I have the opportunity to have them on the show. But yeah, I got to the point, I did all of it by myself. I've set up every interview. I've done every pitch. I've been introduced to some people, but typically even then I have to ask for the introduction. Can you introduce me to so-and-so? And more often than not, they do it, because I'm pretty cautious about who I ask, but I've done it by myself. I've built this by myself with my son producing the podcast, but the connections and all that kind of stuff, I did it by myself. I do have to a shout out to a couple people that are ridiculously influential. Peggy Post, the former executive director of the Emily Post Institute, one of my very dear friends I met here in Naples, has endorsed both of my books, the fiction and the nonfiction book. And I would be no one without Erin Brockovich. She is so special to me. We met in Naples 7 years ago. We're 2 years apart in age. We both went to college in the Midwest, me in Missouri and her in Kansas. And I would say we're the exact same person, but she's a lot tougher than me. I can't pretend to be nearly. But to have her available, I mean, her handprints are all over my back all the time. I'm never allowed, with Peggy Post, with Pat Benatar, with Erin Brockovich, if I ever doubt myself, they will kick me in the butt. They have no problems letting me know. But she is profoundly special. She's done the podcast every season so far, and we're good friends, and we talk all the time. And I'm finally used to it. She thought I was used to it much sooner than I was. But I mean, now when I look at the phone and Erin Brockovich is calling, I no longer pass out. But yeah, I mean,
Well,
how lucky am I? How lucky am I that
absolutely lucky. One of the things we talked about on our podcast almost every episode is the importance of having a team. And what you have done in the last few minutes is describe your team, right? Some key players anyway in your team. Everyone needs someone to tell them that they're awesome, right? Every day or multiple times a week or whatever it is. Everyone needs that kind of person in their life. And it doesn't matter in what walk of life or what field of pursuit you're in. You need that kind of person in your life to tell you you're awesome, someone that you can actually complain to sometimes, because life is not always a bed of roses. And I would like for you to share, has there been a crash and burn with your podcast or something that you would be willing to share with us? Or it's like,
it would not surprise you to know that I'm never going to kiss and tell. I'm never going to ever talk negatively about someone. But I'm also going to share with you, out of 300 interviews, only one person didn't meet my expectations.
well, I'm meaning more like something that somehow you failed, whether
personal adversity that you were able to overcome, or
something
along that.
That's what do I mean by a crash and burn. Maybe you said, "Oh, I want to interview this person," and the pitch didn't go well, and then you learned, "Oh, I did this wrong, and I need to correct myself." Or as you've been so successful all along that
oh no. You can crash and burn. Okay, now I get you on crash and burn. Oh yeah, crash and burn. It used to hurt my feelings because I was like, why wouldn't someone want to talk to me? I'm so nice. I also realized my pitch was pretty specific. Endorsement by Peggy Post from the Emily Post Institute, and now Lizzie Post and Daniel Post, sending all the posts have done the show, and then Erin Brockovich has said best host and best podcast ever. That's her quote. And so when that goes out in a pitch, there's an expectation I'm setting to that handler. And that is, you better be nice, you better be smart. And so for the most part, and so sometimes I know that they're going, oh yeah, I can't, my client's not very nice. I'm not going to put them on the show. We'll go back to Erin though. And this is a great story. I found out she was coming to Naples. I wrote her nothing. I wrote her again. I had her email, nothing. Called the place sponsoring her speech, no help. Went through her website, nothing. Now, granted, I didn't do this every day, every couple weeks or so. And I was frustrated because I was obsessed with meeting her. And I was about to give up. Truly, I was about to give up. And then I thought, well, who is she? What's she known for? What is she all about? And so my son took a picture. And on this picture, there was a message for her. I'm holding up the piece of paper, and in big font, there's a message to her. He took a picture Now, this is audio only. I'm going to show it to you guys so you can see it, but they're going to hear what it is. He took this picture. I emailed it to her, and it said, Aaron Brockovich does not give up easily either. 1 minute later, I heard from my new BFF. I was on the verge of giving up, and then I went, at her essence, who is she? And our word is stick-to-itiveness. Stick-to-itiveness is our word. And that's what she responded to. And that's what not only got me the interview, but that's what cemented what has become one of the most important relationships in my life. When I say I love Aaron Brockovich, I do. It's a real feeling of she's very special. I mean, incredible to me. But yeah, no, you can crash and burn a lot. And it was getting over it and not being hurt, which was hard for me because I'm a vulnerable person, but I also am very shocked. A lot of these people say very personal things to me, and I protect them. I tell people I don't interview, I adopt, for one thing, and it's true. I mean, I've been tweeting lately Leanne Toohey from The Blind Side. Oh, it took me 2 or 3 years, but I got it. And now she tweets me and we text some. I mean, but you have to kind of hang in there till you get the people. But yeah, I pinch myself a lot. I am grateful a lot. I never, ever, ever, ever take it for granted when anyone, regardless of their level of fame, talks to me. I never take it for granted. It's such a gift every time. And I don't have a patent on this. Everyone can do it. I say in Naples, Florida, you don't know who's standing next to you in line at Walgreens. Pay attention. Pay attention. You don't know. There are brilliant people who are wildly successful living all around me. I just interviewed Dog the Bounty Hunter. Moved to town, interviewed Dog the Bounty Hunter. I call him Puppy. And I got away with it.
You did.
I got away with it. I found out when he was younger, they nicknamed him Dog, but when he was really young, they still sort of sometimes jokingly called him Puppy. I said, I think I need to call you Puppy. He said, well, I'm going to let you. So I called Dog the Bounty Hunter Puppy, and I lived to tell the tale.
For now, anyway.
For now, we're good so far. And I've actually called him Puppy many times to his face. But I mean, how fascinating was that? Some of my best times are those opportunities that sort of arise. I got introduced to him, the interview got approved, and then I started to see him popping up on my social media in my town, at my grocery store. I mean, not just in Naples, but in my neighborhood. Come to find out, he just moved to he'd moved to the part of the side of Naples that I live on. It's crazy. It's crazy and wonderful.
So when you sit down with someone new, is there certain go-to questions that you have that just kick off the conversation and allow you to listen, to ask follow-up questions, allow someone to open up a little bit more than, say, a typical "how was your day"?
I always prepare about 5 or 10. I prepare. I'm a Virgo. I'm prepared. And that worked out really well with Vanna White because she's so media trained. She never answers anything in more than 30 seconds. And I'm like, wow. I'm like through all 10 questions in 10 minutes. I was like, you're not getting off this phone, Vanna. So I kept going because she's so used to doing the soundbite answer. If you are a conversationalist, and I am, and I enjoy it, and if you just listen to what they said and respond in kind to them, doing a 30-minute show is really never a problem. If they're engaged, and thankfully, one person I found challenging, and I will never say who they are, and I actually do understand. I do understand why this person was challenging, and I chose to forgive and forget and understand. Other than that, everyone's really been from good to awesome and pretty amazing to work with. But if you're wondering, is he always this upbeat? And yeah, I am. I'm always this appreciative and this energetic and this joyful and this happy that I got to do it. I never thought I would get to do this. And I'm 60 years old. And I'm still out there trying to make a name for myself. And I'm really proud of that.
I love the stick-to-itiveness that you continue going and going.
Yep.
That is one of the things we've talked about on our podcast with multiple guests about having crash and burns and picking yourself up, dusting off the dirt and going on to the next one. You really want to be successful, and it doesn't matter what area you want to be or where you're going to call success, whether that's in the amount of dollars you have in your account, the number of this, number of friends you have, clothes, whatever, right? You still need to have that do it again, do it again, do it again, like you did with Aaron Brockovich. I think that's such a great story. I was counting on my hand. I was attempting. He said, "Well, then I tried again. I didn't. I'm not sure I got enough counts."
There were four. There were four different, very specific attempts, and then a phone call to the organization sponsoring her speech. And I'm not criticizing them at all. Ultimately, my column in the newspaper supported them. They were nonprofit, and it should have. That wasn't their goal. It was okay, but yeah, I was about to give up, and then I looked at who she was and what she stood for. Shouldn't give up. So I made my little picture, and I mean, it was a minute. It was 1 minute. It was 1 minute. I was screaming. I was losing it. It was 1 minute. Yeah.
Your podcast, as you said, has been a body of an educational type thing. What are some educational, and in the event we can kind of go out of your comfort zone here, because I want to talk a little bit about money, a little bit about finances. That's what this podcast is a little bit about.
Right.
Of all the people you've talked to, and maybe some wisdom that you have gleaned, what would you say is why investing would be important?
The word, I love to go to the dictionary and look up words. I don't have the dictionary in front of me to look up the word invest. But I think intuitively we know what it means. There's many ways to invest. You invest your money in something you believe in, something that you want to do well. You invest your time in people. I'm investing in a podcast. I'm investing in the world. Those people who are choosing to talk to me are investing in me. I see investing. It's interesting because I did a show with a woman named Jennifer Love, who's a financial expert. And one of the things we talked about was my relationship with money. I have a bad relationship with money because and I'm not blaming him, and he's still alive. My father was born in 1931 in the Depression. So money was hush, hush, hidden, never talked about, never discussed. It was completely, so it was taught to me as something you never talked about, you never dealt with. When my father finally leaves us, I swear to God, we will find his money buried in the backyard. We're totally prepared to have to dig up the backyard to find his money because he's a Depression kid. And so I had the challenge of, over time, first saying I wasn't any good with money. I didn't like math. I didn't like money, to only be ratted out by, like, my CPA was like, you get all this stuff and you're great and your instincts are right. And once you get past there's right brain, left brain, I guess the left brain side, because I'm very much a creative brain side. Once you get over, I don't like my analytical brain as much as my creative brain. Investing is creative. It is thought-provoking. It does involve research. It is interesting. I'm also really well handled. My financial planner literally I met her, and can I say her name? Can I say the name of my financial planner?
Sure.
Sue Vanderlinden, Morgan Stanley. Sue Vanderlinden, Morgan Stanley is my financial planner, has been for 20 years. We met at an event by chance. She happened to come up and see me sitting alone, introduced herself. We got along. We had lunch because I needed somebody to take over my finances and my business's finances. And I had, interviewed her and chose her to do it, only to discover that we went to the same elementary school in Columbia, Missouri.
No
at
way.
the same time. At the same time, we had that kind of, she's 3 years younger than me, but we went there. We still had that common element. And that was something that was really, really extraordinary to me. But can I tell you who I talked to that's right up your alley?
Sure.
And what she said to me?
Please.
I met Susie Orman. Extraordinary. Because first, I met her wife, KT. And KT, after I met Susie and did the interview and everything, KT comes forward for whatever reason. They live, across the state from me. So they're only 2 hours away from me. And she decides, KT, Susie's wife, says, you should take an art class with my sister. I don't know why she said this, but she said it. And, and Susie's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to tell Susie Orman, no, that's just not something anyone would do. And so, but my first thought was, oh, I have no artistic talent. I can tell other people what to do. I'm an art director, but I can't. My child's artistic talent was better than mine when she was 5. Seriously, it's not a joke. 5 years old, she was better than me drawing something. And first I told myself, no, I couldn't do it. And then I caught myself going, oh man, I just told myself no. I'm not supposed to tell myself no. So we go over. I did the art class. Lynn Stendler. I wish I'm going to say her name. I think it's Stendler. Brilliant, amazing teacher. We did watercolors, and then we're doing them, and all of a sudden Susie shows up to evaluate my work. So I'm expecting my entire relationship with her to be about money. And Susie and KT show up to actually see the results of the art class of me, my kids, and my husband, because it's a private art class. And she's looking at my art, and I could see the don't quit your day job look in her face. I could see that. I mean, I knew that she wasn't overwhelmed by it, but I didn't say no. But what Susie represents my thought and my ideas in a couple of different ways because of her line, her catchphrase, people first, then money, then things. And I actually do live that way. But I tell you, Susie Orman said something to me in my interview with her that haunts me. And I quote her practically every time I'm on stage and every podcast. She said to me, every new moment you spend with anybody and anything has to be a new moment and not just a recreation of the past. That's so hard to do. But she's right. It's so hard to do. It is that though she's known for finance, she takes her concepts of money into how they apply on the bigger picture into life. And that's what I got from her and what it really means. But the idea of what she said, that every single time I'm sitting there with my family watching Netflix is a new moment and not a recreation of the night before. Well, we can be kind of boring here through the week. I mean, that is almost incredibly impossible to do the same type of task. But if you know it should be a new moment, you see it differently. It haunts me. And I got this from her probably almost 10 years ago, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And it's the one quote I've heard from everybody I've ever interviewed that really has stuck with me and haunts me and makes me want to do it, even though I fail so often. It's something incredible to aspire to.
That's a really good quote. That'll probably be in the show notes. It'll be something we'll be saying to people that this is something you need to understand and glean from. So of all these things, one of the questions we ask every guest is, what would Randy say in the event he had the opportunity to go back and meet Randy at, say, 18 or 19 or 20? What is a real short advice that you would give to that 18-year-old?
Oh, he was a mess. He needed to hear a lot. He talked too much. He was too obsessed with being on a stage and not obsessed enough with, he was too obsessed with performing and not obsessed enough with taking in and experiencing the complete world around him. He would also benefit from knowing that a credit card has an interest rate. That's one thing I didn't know on credit card number one. When I go back to that age, it is all money. The things that 18-year-old Randy didn't know was money. I'm not faulting my father. He was born in a depression. That's not something, and look how old I am. They weren't teaching it in school, really. Just not something that was talked about. I wish that my financial education had started so much younger, and I would give 18-year-old me that financial education now. And I try to make sure I sprinkle it into my kids are 32 and 34. I mean, I recently had the, you know what? I know you're 32, but if they have a 401k match, let's go ahead and start that, even if it's $50 a month. Even if it's $100 a month, let's start that. Let's get that going. I wish I hadn't had come through the financial school of hard knocks as a young person. Literally didn't know there was an interest rate on a credit card. Just thought if I paid off what I charged, that was good. That's not the way it works.
Where would you point that Randy, to start that financial education? Would there be a book such as Think and Grow Rich or Rich Dad Poor Dad? What would you point them to as like a starting point?
I love nothing more than reading a book and talking to the author. But if I have a choice, I would have had Randy talk to someone.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm still going to always be an advocate for face-to-face communication. I'm going to be, my kids will text me, and after 3 texts, I go, no. We have now this is a phone call now. I only have so long to do this thumb thing with you. And then I pick up and call them. They don't answer the phone.
Speaking my language, Randy,
yeah,
with Scott on the phone, Scott here on the podcast, I think, we're speaking the same language there. I'm feeling it.
I really get concerned about, I've taught speech forever. I've always I've coached people on presentations. I've been a theater director. I've taught speech. So I'm all about how you communicate yourself from a stage, how you make your thoughts and ideas and emotions known. And I'm so fearful of that continuing to erode as we are letting technology do all the heavy lifting. And technology does it wrong a lot. There's so many things that are misunderstood or misinterpreted. And I know that at my age, but I, sometimes wonder whether the younger generations even know that. But yeah, I'm going to be an advocate for face-to-face communication. I'm going to be an advocate for sit down and talk to somebody who knows more than you do. I'm never the smartest person in the room, so that's helpful. And I say that out of respect to me. The people that I know that always think they're the smartest person in the room, they're the people that are the most worthless to me. Because no one is ever the smartest person in the room. Hoda Kotb said to me, everyone you meet knows something you don't know. She didn't invent that. She didn't invent that. But the fact that I heard it from Hoda Kotb, well, yeah, that hit me really hard because it's true. Everyone you meet knows something you don't know. And I want to know all of it.
I love that. We another question that we ask, and this is probably one of our last questions here, as we appreciated your time so much. It's been awesome. Is what is the next mountain to climb, or what's the next goal for Randy? Whether that's in 1 year, 3 years. And part of what that is saying, we would like to celebrate with you when you achieve that goal.
Okay, well, then we're on.
Say, I want to have so-and-so on my podcast. And then when that happens, you're duty bound as our new friend to contact us, says, hey, I did it. I
will do that for you because you're adopting me. You're adopting me. You're not just interviewing me. You're adopting me, and I accept that. The goal is as obvious as it can be. A few months ago, my first fiction book, Ruby, Magic Comes from the Heart, came out.
And everybody, we're going to put a link to that in the show notes. I mean, you can always go to Amazon and search it, I know, but we'll just put a link to make it easy.
Ruby, Magic Comes from the Heart. Janet Ivanovich endorsed this. Peggy Post endorsed it. Aaron Brockovich endorsed it. Susan Bennett, the original voice of Siri. My Kevin Getz, who is such a power player in movie research, endorsed this and read this. And I've had so many actresses of note. Every main character is over 55 years old. And I've had so many people who are actresses over that age who have read this book. It really is taking nonfiction into fiction, because the best fiction teaches anyway. Let's get real. I mean, I didn't invent the idea, but Mark Victor Hansen from Chicken Soup for the Soul, who introduced us, published this book. The goal, without question, is the movie of Ruby. That is the goal. That is 100% the goal. I want this movie. I'm going to send it out into the world. I do deserve this movie. This book deserves this movie. It's a holiday script. It's very much focused around the holiday, yet you can read it in July, and everyone who's read it going, yeah, it's holiday, but it's not. I want that movie, and you know what, Jason? You know what, Scott? I'm going to get it. Ruby's going to get it because she deserves it. That's the goal. And then the follow-up book. because she's got more stuff to do. She's got other places to go and more lives to change.
Okay, well, when that happens, we'll be there with you. Let us know. We'll come buy tickets and
I
we'll
will
go
let
with
you know. I will remember this. I will remember. That's a very cool question and a very special question. Yep. Ruby the movie. That's what I want.
Perfect.
And I'm having the conversations. It's not like I'm just sitting there doing nothing. There's movement that I'm really happy with. So
Good.
Well, we're
we'll
excited.
See we'll see.
We're going to hold
how
you
it has
to
to
it.
it's going to happen.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. We really appreciate all your time, Randall. Any final parting thoughts or?
Every moment you spend with anybody and anything has to be a new moment and not just a recreation of the past. That's the one I usually use for the very last thing, because it's just so wonderful and so powerful and so hard. And it's a challenge, and it's a wonderful challenge to strive for.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.